Welcome to Reputation Revolution. This is the podcast where we help individuals like you to establish your voice in the marketplace, enhance the credibility of that voice, extend the reach of your story and your message, and finally, extract value from your efforts in building a meaningful personal brand that's both recognized and respected. Now, on with the show.
And we're back with the Reputation Revolution. My name is Trevor Young and I've got with me Brendan Keogh. He's a content strategist, a ghostwriter, a podcast producer, my partner in crime when we recap previous episodes. Brendan, how are you going?
Greetings, I'm wonderful. It's great to be here, mate.
Excellent, excellent. So we've done a few of these now where we go back over a previous interview that I've done and we chew the fat across it, recap it, add some actionable insights and you know, some takeaways. So we'll just, people like it by all reports, so we're going to keep going with that. Mate, last week I spoke to Sonja Nisson, who's one of two founders of the School of Valuable Content. She comes from Bristol in the UK and a wonderful writer, a really savvy content marketer and someone who, writes from the heart a lot. We talked vulnerability, we talked rawness in writing and creating content, that side of things. And it was quite a philosophical conversation and we got deeper into, excuse the pun, deep content, which is a concept that that Sonja talks about. So today let's talk about deep content and go, unpack that a little bit more. But just as we do off the top, what was your, by watching that or listening to the interview, it depends on whether you did video or audio, what did you think of what the conversation was about? Any key takeaways from the outset that what Sonja was talking about?
The first thing that struck me was Sonja's question of, why does the world need Trevor Young? That was a very big philosophical question that I think came through. We'll get to on why that, what the context of that is. But,
did I have an answer? I can't remember.
I don't think so, mate. But I've got a few for you. But deep content. I think that was a great, a really meaty concept to ponder. And Sonja was talking about, we do need. She had flow and stock content. We need the smaller stuff, the flow content, the posts, keep the conversation moving.
Yep.
But this deep content where you're forced to think deeply. And so I think that's just a powerful delineation of separating smaller posts, ad hoc posts versus this concept where you have to really understand something, put some thought in, think deeply about how this thing works and how you can provide a useful solution for people. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack from it.
And it's about thinking deeply. Like the content has to have depth to it, but the whole notion of deep content is about thinking deeply about what the ideas and the stories and the stuff that you're writing about. So, it's not necessarily the longest bit of content, but we'll go into examples of it. As you know, I've sort of for a long time talked about those three types of, I guess, content groups: the premium signature content, the what I call sub-branded media properties, ugly term, horrible term, sub-branded media properties, which is like a podcast that is recurring all the time, and then your day-to-day presence content. And people who have listened to this podcast for a while probably heard me refer to these quite often. And I guess if we look at with Sonja, and she was talking about this stock and flow, and the stock content being that heavier, deeper content. That's probably what I've been calling my premium signature content. So I might keep reverting back to that, but it's in essence, it's the same thing. And then the day-to-day presence content, which is just keeping, I call it's like air cover, keeping your brand visible, staying respectfully on people's radar. That's that flow content. That's your social media and your the content that just keeps you visible out there. So just from the outset, just so people starting to get a picture of what we mean. But when it comes to, and you heard that we discussed about the deeper content and the types of I guess, mediums and modalities that you can use. Sonja used the example of a book, for example. She's had a book for a number of years that's been out and has had a big impact on her and Sharon, her partner in the School of Valuable Content. And also, one thing I love, she talked about a map, a content marketing map that they created. I've seen the map before. It's brilliant, really well illustrated. What did you think of that? What did you think of, like, when we think of content and deep content, we do think of books. We do think of, maybe a video series or something like that. What did you think of the map? I loved it.
I think it's great, and she had another example of a client who had a deck of cards, or the client had gamified their system, and it is a different. As she spoke about thinking creatively about your content, it's part of thinking deeply about it. So it's you referred in the interview about how hard it is to differentiate yourself, to get noticed. So that is one way of presenting something in a different format that challenges people. As long as it's not gimmicky, as long as it's related to the point, it ties in well. It can elevate and just start conversations. So I think it's really powerful. The other part of the deep content component that I loved, because you both talked about the internal and external benefits. So external are pretty well known, of positioning yourself as an authority, getting your name out there, getting a foot in the door to get on other stages, those kind of obvious benefits of, say, a book. But Sonja talked about the internal benefits, thinking deeply about this, pondering it, working things through thoroughly. It makes you better. It helps you fully understand. It forces you to really understand and ask those key questions of who are we, what are we doing, why are we doing, who are we serving, and how can we be of value. And so by that process and by definition of thinking deeply, you become better. You become better at what you're doing. You better understand your clients. You understand the topic more. So I love the internal and external benefits concept.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. And another thing she talked about was the commitment to your subject, because you're willing to go deeper into it. So it does show and it demonstrates that you have that commitment, I guess, and she said, going above and beyond. See, most people won't do that. Most people love surface stuff. They bang out content, they bang out a blog post because, that's a box we have to tick. But, true thought leaders and ones who are really wanting to share their ideas with the world, and experts too, have got, best practice, deep levels of specialization. They will go deep, and that gives you the edge. And I think the other thing, as you said, the internal and the external. So there's the perceptions, but the other thing is the expertise will deepen as a result. As Sonja was saying, you'll learn so much more from going deep. Now, I've just created a masterclass for what I call the Credible Authority Academy. I've just it's only gone live this week, so credibleauthority.com for a bit of a plug there.
Congratulations.
It's a master, like how I slipped that in. It's all about context, mate. But I would say that doing a masterclass presentation, it might only be over, 5 videos over 2 hours, but the thought and the distillation that's gone into that has been enormous. And that I would call a masterclass, deep content. What do you think?
No, absolutely. Look, Sonja talked about, people are drawn to people who care, just knowing that people care. And she used the term, compared to sort of content as a tactic, which I think is a really good way. You can tell when people are just putting something out for the sake of it, or for that, trying to game the system, or just with a purpose in mind, versus doing it because they care about the topic, because they care about their community, they want to better their industry and want to sort of add to the conversation and help. So I think care was a really good part. That again, it's hard to think deeply about something you don't really care about. So I think thinking deeply, creating this longer form content shows that you this matters to you. It's not just something you're going to just bang out a topical post.
Yeah, it matters. Yeah, it's a really good point, because you're not going to put that effort in if you don't care, if you're not enamored and passionate about the topic. And if you don't want to share stuff, like if you're doing content to tick a box, you just, that is the tactic. But if you do it because it's like when you write a book, you have to get that book out of you because it demands to be written. And, you know, you're a ghostwriter, you've written for other, thought leaders and experts in their space. And, you know, you would know that they've got that passion for their topic and they've put so much research and work, and sure, they might not be necessarily putting pen to paper, but there's still a heck of a lot of work that goes into getting it in a form that where you can take it over.
You know, and for me, just working with a lot of thought leaders, that's what's exciting, because these are people who care deeply, who think deeply, and they're putting, brave enough to put their thoughts out there. So yeah, it's important that it flows on, and it's what attracts. I think that's what came through from what Sonja said. That's what attracts people, that care. We talk about authenticity and vulnerability. Like obviously they're used a lot, but that's where this sort of stuff comes from. It's really something that you mentioned, put your flag in the ground. That this is what I'm passionate about. So it's something echoed by you regularly. Yeah,
it's so we're looking at. Showing that you, just by doing it, will be showing that you care, and people will pick up on that. You can't fake that, and if you do, you'll fake it for a little bit, and then people will pick up on it. Ideas that matter, that they matter to you, because if they don't matter to you and you don't care about them, you won't put the work in to get them out there. And if if they are ideas that matter and conversations and debates that matter. To you, there's a good chance that you'll find an audience for those. So it's about gravitas. The word that comes to mind to me is gravitas. Deep content, ideas that matter, caring about what you do, and bringing people along for that journey as well. There's gravitas to that, and I don't know whether you can just say, I'm going to create some content with gravitas. How would you describe gravitas? I'm going to put you on the spot there. It's a good word, but it's, when you hear it, and it's got this, I guess, a deeper meaning of, it's got a bit of weight behind it, hasn't it?
Meaty. I'd answer it by, you use the reference with Mark Masters, say good stuff, do good stuff, and write good stuff, So it's because you're looking about that community. It's beyond just something that's benefiting you.
Yes.
It's something it's beyond this small interaction. It's something a bit more lasting, and it's going to have
a bit of weight behind it.
Weight behind it.
Yeah. So you did say about caring, and I suppose when you care, then that's an emotion, and we're trying to create emotional connection with people through our content. That'd be fair to say. And the conversation with Sonja did go off into, and she's a wonderful writer, and she's written some very vulnerable pieces where she was, as a writer, quite vulnerable and raw in what she wrote about. And this is something she also teaches, and it's probably a pretty hard thing to teach, I think, to teach someone to be vulnerable in their work. Where do you stand on the whole notion of vulnerability and rawness and, I guess, authenticity in your content?
Reference back to our last discussion when we looked at Ashley's, your interview with Ashley about you've got people have got many aspects of themselves, and there's aspects of your private life that contribute to who you are at work and your knowledge and experience. So to try and decompartmentalize them all is very tiring, and I think you're robbing people of a bit of what it's like to really work with you, and by sharing that a bit more of yourself, you may not appeal. It may put some people off, but those people who get it and it resonates with are going to love you even more. Yep. So I'm all for showing a little bit of behind the curtain of what you're like, because it's tied in. The work life lines are blurring, daily. So, and I guess what we aspire to, particularly, that concept of a thought leader is someone who's living this all the time. They don't switch off and clock off, punch the card and be done with this. It's something that you kind of live a lot of the time. So
and evolve.
Yeah.
And evolve. And I guess that's the other thing with, I know when I'm, creating some, what I'd call deep content for myself and working on that, it will evolve, and those ideas will change, and the phrases I use will change over a period of time. So it is an ever-evolving beast. I just want to quickly go back to, just so people are aware of kind of, I guess, the mediums and the modalities that we spoke about. So we're looking at probably all the vehicles for your deep content. That's probably the best way to describe it. So you're looking at books, but probably also ebooks, maybe some, reports, in-depth guides, not just, quick checklists. White papers, I suppose, would do that. You could do short-run podcasts on a particular topic. I've known people. It's quite rare, but I've known people to do like a 10-episode podcast on one particular theme, and they go deep into that theme. Usually, people who've got 10 podcasts out there have just given up. But there are people who've done podcasts on a particular theme, and you could do videos the same thing, couldn't you? You could do a series of videos on the one topic, and rather than have it all in a 2-hour video that could be broken up. So and what we mentioned earlier, masterclasses, keynotes, I think could be deep content, because as we know, a lot of work goes into keynote presentations. And the map and the cards. I was going to say
maps.
Map and the cards.
Let's not forget audio books.
Audio books, yes.
Extension of the book.
And they don't have to be full-blown books of 60,000 words. You can, a more of a mini ebook or something like that, which could be a mini audio book of 10,000, 20,000 words, depending on whatever it needs.
I think the where Sonja was talking about, think creatively about it. So the map example is great. We naturally think about books as the way to really convey the deepest content there is, but there's so many other ways that you can, you have to, because how she described it, where it's forcing you to think deeply, this process, not just about it's a very deep concept, but it's there's obviously a lot of work that's gone into thinking through the problem and the situation and articulating the how-to or the benefit or what people can do to be better. There's I think the formats are endless. So you listed a lot. The keynote is a great example. It's a really great opportunity to.
And maybe that's the thing. Look, a keynote can turn into a book, or a book can turn into a keynote. You can have the ancillary things like the card or a map. You can do some videos around it. You can do a short form or a short run podcast. I don't think it's one thing. I think it's going to be a combination of things, because if you've got these big audacious ideas and you're putting it out there and you're sharing them with the world, that you want them in different ways as well. So I certainly wouldn't limit myself in that regard.
The other thing that came through from the discussion was Sonja saying that content drives business strategy. It's a catalyst for business strategy, which I thought was really fascinating, and it's something I've always thought that because it's the outward-facing perception of the business. This is what we're about, and it again requires you to think deeply, to fully understand who we are, what are we saying, who are we helping, how do we do things, how can we be of service, and that is it's a great way to get people who internally who may not think in those terms to think in those terms. So I think she used the term as a Trojan horse for creating a customer focus.
Yeah,
so I thought that was really powerful.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, I do what I call content-led communication strategy. So whether it's content strategy or a communication strategy, it doesn't really matter, because a communication strategy should be led by a content strategy, in my humble opinion. But it's amazing how many times I've done that. I'm doing it with one client at the moment, that it can change just by going down that path. As you said, understanding your customer, yes, but other things as well, what you want to be known for, your reputational flags in the ground. It can change the way you think about your business from a strategic point of view. Now, I'm always pained. Look, I'm not a business strategist, but I can tell you now that by me asking these questions, this is a catalyst for you to probably better understand your business and what you want to do with it, which is, I've found that happens more often than not, which is interesting.
I think when you are developing content, working with a individual or a group to develop content with them, there's some of those basic questions of who are we talking to? What are we, what's their pain points? What are they trying to, what keeps them up at night? Just basic, very, very, very fundamental questions like that can get people, who have got many other aspects coming in, that just get them to focus. And as Sonja had articulated, it's about that customer focus.
That's
remember
right.
who we're talking to. Remember who we're doing this all for. That we wouldn't be here if we didn't have them. So, getting back on that customer track, it's a great way to do that. She said, content is the customer, the outward face of the business, really. So,
and you might have multiple clients or ideal clients or customers, and you work out, actually, I don't like these ones I'm dealing with over here. Let's focus on these ones, which again in turn changes your business a little bit. So, I guess the upshot is that deep content plays a really important role in your communications, particularly if you want to build a business around your personal brand, or lead a business in which your professional personal brand will be important. Your thought leadership positioning in the marketplace. So if you're wanting to build a credible thought leader brand, you really need to, what Sonja says, is unlock, shape, and communicate your ideas. And one way to do that is through deep content that sparks conversation and attracts an audience and gets people right behind you. So thanks, Brendan, for your time today, mate. It's been good to chat and recap Sonja's my interview with Sonja from last week's. Just recapping, that Sonja is an independent brand strategist and a content coach from Bristol in the UK, and she is also the co-founder of the School of Valuable Content. So if you like this discussion and you haven't listened to the one with that I had with Sonja in episode 230, please go back and check that out. I think you'll really enjoy it. We do get quite philosophical, didn't we, Brendan?
No, absolutely, Trevor. Thanks for the opportunity to chat. I enjoyed recapping this interview. It was a great interview, and as always, love dissecting it post-interview with you.
Excellent. Speak to you in a fortnight.
Tremendous. Ta-da.
The reputation economy is here. The world today needs more genuine, credible experts and leaders to stand up and share their experience, their wisdom, their stories and ideas. Are you in?